come the stars come to shine when it's dark from so far away? Show us where we are. What makes the sun go to sleep every night?
Hey friends, welcome to Whiskey and Wit. I'm Whitney, and today's video is going to be some super affordable and easy patriotic DIYs. So let's get started.
First up is this Patriotic Garland, and I love that it's kind of muted. It's not as bright of a red as I typically use, and it really fits in with my kitchen and this new beadboard Alex put up as well. It really feels like Americana. I was inspired by the Stars and Stripes banner from Kirkland's, so I grabbed some of this burlap in the fall for 80% off, so it ended up being a $1.19 at Hobby Lobby, so making this garland a $1 approximately project. So the first thing I did is I went through and cut, I just eyeballed this. I did 12 pieces of burlap in about the size that I was looking to do. I wasn't too worried that it was all going to be even because that really kind of played into the rustic nature of the piece. But once I cut those, I did the blue star pieces first. So I took some ocean paint, which is the blue by Waverly, and I just got that at Walmart. I went through and kind of dry brushed the paint on the burlap. Now I had one little oops up in the corner where you can see that kind of blob of paint, but for the most part I used my paper towel to really get that paint off of the paintbrush, so then that way you didn't have a lot of gobs. I did the same thing with the red, but I went through with 1-inch painter's tape and just eyeballed some vertical stripes and then kind of dabbed and rubbed the paint across just so you didn't have that huge gob of paint. Like I said before, just kind of dab it off. You want enough that you're going to get color, but you don't want it to collect on top of the burlap because it's relatively porous. So then I just used the same 3 pieces of painter's tape, all about sustainability and using what you have. So I went through and did all of my pieces like that, and I peeled it off when it was still wet and let them dry with the tape knot on. Then once all my blue pieces were dry, I cut out a star to the size that I wanted from my Cricut. Now a hack here is you can get some of those name tag stickers from the Dollar Tree that come in a star and just pull off the sticker and use the backing paper as an actual stencil. That's worked out really well. You can do that with any of their stickers, but I just went ahead and cut the star that Cricut offers in Design Space. And then I went through, same thing, trying not to gob the paint here, but really dabbing up and down. So then that way I got the nice white color, and I ended up using just white acrylic paint here because that's what I had on hand. I use the same stencil for all 5. It's nice because it sticks just enough that it's not going to seep through, but it's also not super sticky, so you're pulling your burlap apart. I let it dry overnight, and then I used some Dollar Tree jute twine to string it all together. So the first step that I did was to take some tape and to create a makeshift little needle and thread situation. It just helps so much with when you're stringing. So if you were looking at the pieces, I went from the front on the right side and then came out from the back on the left side. So then that way your jute twine was on the back. So then you could really see the full piece of burlap instead of having the jute twine on front. And then before I cut that last piece of jute twine, I took it over to where I was going to hang it in our kitchen, which is where Alex put this beadboard on our peninsula. And then I taped it and then started really messing with it so it would fit the space perfectly. So I went through, looked at each piece, I trimmed it if it was too long because I eyeballed it from the beginning, and then I went and pulled a couple strings of the burlap out at the bottom, so then that way you kind of had that frayed edge. It really gives it that vintage patriotic feel. To finish it off, I created a ribbon tassel from some ribbon I had on hand. The top 2 are Dollar Tree and the bottom one is Michael's. So the first step is I took my red ribbon and I just wrapped it around my 4 fingers 3 times just to give myself an approximate length. That's usually what I do for tassels. Then I took that as a guide and cut the same length of another piece of red and then 2 pieces of white and 2 pieces of blue. So then that way I had enough for 2 tassels. Once I had those all cut to the same length, then I went ahead, folded the piece in half, and then I cut them in half. So then that way I had more pieces for my tassel. Once I had the 6 pieces, I put them in the order that I wanted and folded it in half, and then put some jute twine through the center to give yourself something to hang it by. Then I took one more piece of jute twine and tied it around the top to give you that tassel look. and I just wrapped it just a few times and then tied it. This plays into that kind of vintage rustic Americana look. Then I just took some tape and hooked it to my counter just because there's not really any easy way to mount it there. But I love how it looks. This is Sebastian's little area where he has his food and water, and so it really just kind of made that area cohesive with the rest of my house with the red, white, and blue decor. Up next, I love this so much. It is an American flag planter made out of paint sticks. So for this project, it ended up being $2 for these materials because there's 2 10-packs of these painter sticks that I just got from Home Depot. So the first step is to assemble your box. The first thing I did was make my long side. You're going to want to make sure all of the sides with the ruler is on the inside unless you're going for that look. I wanted the plain wood to be on the outside. And then I just used some Dollar Tree craft sticks I had on hand. You could also use cut down painter sticks to glue them together. I used a 6-stick panel for the front and the back, and then a 4-stick panel for either side. So I went through and made both of those, and then I used some Dollar Tree tumbling tower blocks to really make sure it was assembled well. It gave me a bigger surface area when I was gluing the box together for it to grip onto instead of just gluing edge to edge, and it really gave me a seamless look on the outside. So I really liked how that turned out. Is dry, I gave it a base coat of just some white acrylic paint. That's going to give me a really nice base, as well as creating the white stripes in the flag and the white stars underneath the blue. Once that was dry, I went through with some 1-inch painter's tape and taped off the stripes. I started at the bottom and I just used some painter's tape in between to space out even stripes. You could do the stripes as thick or as thin as you want. And then once I got about 3/4 of the way up, then I started thinking about where I wanted the blue star area of the flag to go. So I decided to have it wrap around the side so it looked like a flag was wrapped around the planter box. So I taped off the area that I wanted to be blue, and then I continued with my stripes all the way up to the top, keeping that same space out of the little piece of tape. Next step is to go through and paint the red stripes. This is the same paint, Waverly Chalk Paint Crimson. So once that dried, I removed the painter's tape and then I got ready to paint the blue section. Because you've got a 1-inch painter's tape gap in between where you want the blue to go and where the red stripe ended, I needed to remove that tape and scooch it just a little bit. So I just ended up lining it up with the red stripe that I had. So then that way you had that blocked, but then your blue is going to go all the way up to the red. Once that was done, I just went and grabbed a Google image of some stars. I measured out on my box where I wanted it to fit. You could definitely do something similar with Dollar Tree star stickers to create a stencil. So if you don't have a Cricut, that's a really easy way to do that. And then also, if you're doing this like I did, just use the transfer tape. I was trying to be fancy here for some reason. It took me way longer than it needed to, so that was a huge pain. But I finally got my stars down. Then I just used some acrylic white paint and just did an up and down dabbing motion so that I could stencil on the stars. And then once that was done, peeled it off and repeated the same step on this side to complete the look. This matches my wood flag so well, so on my mantle it looks so good together. I will link that DIY for you up above if you've missed that one, but I love how this turned out. You can add faux greenery. These would be really cute outside with, this would be super cute to line a walkway to a 4th of July or Memorial Day party with like a flameless candle in there. This would be cute for a patriotic wedding as a centerpiece. There are a lot of different options that you can use for this, and honestly, at $2 for the painter sticks, it is so affordable. And finally, I found this sign down in my basement. I had forgot I had bought it to do a DIY, and so I decided what better way than to redo it for 4th of July, Memorial Day, patriotic, etc. So this is the kitchen measurement sign from Dollar Tree. I just went through with some ink chalk paint, and I just covered up all of the kitchen measurements, so then that way you had a just plain blank slate. I left the outline, but I removed pretty much everything else, and when I was painting it on, it looked like a totally different color, but it ended up drying pretty matte and it worked really well. So then to complete this look, I created a layered vinyl decal with my Cricut. So I will link the information down below as to where I got these files. I made the text around, but the USA kind of cut out of America flag is available, so I will link where that came from down below. So the first step was to take my white piece, which is my letters and the cutout of the USA, to put it on there so I knew where I needed to stack my other items. So once that was applied, I used my phone to give myself some extra light, and I added the blue piece right on top of the red. By using the light, it really helped me see where the outlines were of each item, so then that way I could get it lined up pretty perfect. If you're having a hard time matching things up, you can always cut off some additional transfer tape, but here I wanted to make sure that my transfer tape was big enough so that when I put the blue on top of the red, I had a big enough piece to pick it all up, blue and red together, to then put it on the white. I love how simple this was to make and how you can easily just stick it anywhere and give your house a little bit of patriotic flair. I always get a ton of questions when I am using that transfer tape. It is from Expressions Vinyl. I will link all my favorites down below.
Thank you so much for watching. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy patriotic DIYs. I'll have some more coming for you throughout the summer because you guys know this is one of my favorite times of year to decorate for. Also be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss a future Whiskey and Whit video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye!
What makes the sun go to sleep every night, and what's it dreaming of?